Hey everyone, welcome back to Blurred Lines podcast. I'm your host, Ashley, or Ash Too Trippy, as some of you guys may know me. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different than the previous episodes you guys have listened to. This is going to give you a little bit more reminiscent vibes of my updates podcast. If you guys have not heard those, go and listen to them in the feed. I was doing updates the first, I would say like couple of months I was doing Blurred Lines podcast. I thought that it was a cool way of people keeping up with true crime. But unfortunately, with my schedule and my life, I can't really do episodes twice a week. It's just impossible for me to organize and just do that twice a week. Now, whenever you're listening to this, I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday season. This is the last Blurred Lines podcast of 2025. So I thought I would do something a little bit special and give you guys an updates podcast and also what we've talked about this year, what I've talked about on my social media. If you guys don't follow me on social media, again, my name is Ash Too Trippy. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. My main platform is TikTok. That is where you will get a lot of information from me over on my TikTok because that's my main page. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Let me know what you guys think. I've gotten a lot of feedback on doing more personable podcasts or like talking like more in a friend sense than doing a little more scripted. There is some stuff I like to do scripted solely just because of the information given. All right, guys, so we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that went on this year in 2025. There's a lot of categories we have here. So, first we had a lot of Netflix documentaries. We had the Gabby Petito documentary. We had the Death in Apartment 603, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg documentary. We also had Astroworld. I know a lot of you guys probably forgot about that, but that was one of my episodes into my deep dives I ended up doing. After watching the Netflix documentary, we had a lot of them, and then of course towards the end of the year we had the Diddy documentary, which was produced by 50 Cent. That was a really good one. If you guys have not seen any Diddy documentaries, I highly recommend that you watch the one on Netflix, because that one, it gives you everything that all the other documentaries were, but it also gives you unseen footage and a little bit more of behind the scenes perspective. So I definitely, that fell into that category a little bit, but we all know Sean Combs is in a category of his own. Then we had a lot of minors. Like that's like the saddest thing I think in doing true crime, is realizing, when I was putting this list together, realizing how many minors were actually taken. So we had the whole Stephen Stearns with Madeline Soto thing wrap up earlier in the year. If you guys don't remember, Madeline Soto was the 13-year-old, just turned 13-year-old, that would, her mother's boyfriend was abusing her for years and ended up taking her life. And then we had Emily Pike out in Arizona, who was found dismembered on the side of the road. Very tragic. That was horrible, and I do know that there is some updates in that as well. Then we had the 764 network. I did a deep dive on the 764 network as well. If you guys don't know what the 764 network is, basically it is a group of, not necessarily minors, but they target minors, and they basically do sextortion to them, telling them they're going to leak nudes that they've sent of them and things like that. So very, very sad thing, and a lot of children have taken their own lives because of this. And then we had also the whole David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. If you guys haven't been following that one, David, or D4VD as he goes, he was a singer, David Burke. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found in the front trunk of his Tesla, abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. And that case is, nobody's been charged with that yet. So that's super sad. We have that one. Then we had the very tragic and heartbreaking case of Jacqueline Torres Garcia. This was the one where her mom and her stepdad allegedly just moved with her and put her in a bin, and she was found in a abandoned home months later, after she was reported missing. And this one was crazy because the mom actually had a little girl with her when CPS had contacted her. Crazy. And then we have the Texas track meet stabbing. I know a lot of people might have forgot about that, but that had took a wild turn, and we're gonna get into that one. And then, of course, we had the newer case of Melody Buzzard. Now, Melody Buzzard, there's brand new updates in that as of December 23rd. There is brand new updates. We have her mother, just spoiler alert for you guys, her mother did it's linked to her mother that she allegedly killed her. So she is no longer with us. That has been confirmed as of December 23rd that she is no longer with us. So that's another tragic one. I was hoping she was maybe alive, maybe with some friends, maybe somewhere, her mother's friends, something like that, but very tragic. And then even though Anna Kepner was considered an adult, we had Anna Kepner, who was the 18-year-old that was found on the Carnival cruise ship, and it is alleged that her life was taken by her stepbrother that was allegedly infatuated with her. So we'll get into that too. Now, also, we had a lot of social media stuff go on, and you guys know me, like, my main platform is TikTok, so I'm on social media a lot. That's my main platform. I love and hate social media because there's times where things get twisted, but there's also times where people will sit and listen. So you always get a mixed group of people like that, but there's a few things I want to talk about on social media. Now, first off, if you guys don't remember Casey Anthony tried to make her comeback over on TikTok. She is still on Substack, but she basically came over and was trying to Gypsy Rose it pretty much. Speaking of Gypsy Rose, we're also going to talk about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I know a lot of you guys here on my podcast, I know a lot of you guys watch my social media, but a lot of you here on my podcast do not know about my past with Gypsy Rose Blanchard and how I'm going to put Gypsy Rose Blanchard to bed in my universe, I guess you can say, this year. So we're going to talk about that. Also, the Menendez brothers. If you guys don't remember, the Menendez brothers also were in the headlines a lot this year, specifically for getting resentenced and possible parole and things like that. And we'll go into that as well. I'm also going to get into, again, the 764 network is a part of social media. That's how they get their victims. So we're going to talk about that. This is what you guys have to expect for this episode. I hope you guys are comfy. I hope you guys are listening while you're cleaning or while you're doing something productive, because we're going to get into it today, guys. I'm not going to talk about this in sections. We're going to talk about it kind of back and forth because I think since we have so many minors that lost their lives, I just really think that it's important to kind of break up the tragic portions of this, okay? Now, let's talk Netflix documentary first. Talk about Astroworld. Let's start with Astroworld. Now, since Astroworld was one of the subjects that I kind of deep dived in because I was interested in it from the beginning. I remember when this happened. I remember the ominous feeling that social media had when this happened and all the videos that were going up. I love that they did a documentary on it because I think a lot of people seen it from afar, and I think a lot of people needed to see it close up for sure. So Astroworld, for those of you guys that don't know, was basically an event that took place in Houston, Texas. Now, this took place November 5th of 2021. This was hosted by the rapper Travis Scott. If you guys don't know who Travis Scott is, he's the one that impregnated Kylie Jenner, and they have a baby together and everything. So now, in this case, 10 people died. There were hundreds of people injured. And basically, it was declared a mass casualty before the show even started. It was in like 10 minutes to the show starting, him on performance. It was crazy. Nothing was done by Travis Scott to stop the concert. He was basically still performing, and he even went as far as bringing a guest on stage. And I'm sure most of you guys know who Drake is. We talk about concert like riots and you talk about like concert things, but this one was super tragic and super ominous. If you guys were around on TikTok during this this era, you guys know that there was a lot of things posted. Later on, there was some stuff that became false, but there was other stuff that was just questionable, like Travis Scott standing on top of a very high platform and visually seeing that on one side of the stage it was way worse than on the other side of the stage. Now, Travis is known to incite riots. He is known to amp up his fan base. He is known to do this. But when you make a combination of amping up your fans for a concert and the venue not being able to fit all the people because people were also crashing down the front gates and getting in, and not only that, you didn't have a correct flow of traffic. People were getting stuck in the area they were in because of barricades. Now, in this incident, the capacity of the venue was about 50,000 and they sold 100,000 tickets. This was supposed to be a 2-day event. This happened on night 1. Again, there was so many just visually disturbing things. There was weird music playing. There was the vibe was just so off. It was crazy. The energy was not right. You could hear it from the people that were there. It was absolutely insane. Travis, it is best to note that Travis did stop for about 3 seconds, 3 different times, but on the other side of where people were actually getting crushed. And a lot of the people that passed away in this were in their 20s, with the youngest being 9 years old, and then there was also a 14-year-old that was killed in this. So it's really crazy. We had the Las Vegas Route 99 festival. Of course, that was a mass shooting, but it also was a mass casualty. I feel like this needs to be talked about more, especially considering that a lot of people are going back to concerts after COVID and getting more comfortable like that. Also, Ticketmaster, there was a lawsuit towards Ticketmaster, and I believe the victims' families did end up winning that. So that's always a wonderful thing. That's always something. It can bring their loved ones back, but it is some form of justice. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Maddie Soto. Okay, so Madeline Soto was a case that absolutely touched my heart. Madeline Soto was a case where I heard when she was missing, because originally she was a missing child. When she went missing, I was posting about it, I was watching it, everything. And then when things came out that it was her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns, that was not only abusing this girl, but also took her life. So tragic, because she was such a light. I actually helped so I bought a t-shirt so they can be able to put a bench in the area where she lives. So when I say that this case touched my heart, it touched my heart. Now, this case did happen in 2024 originally, but Stephen Stearns was sentenced. The trial was supposed to begin on July 22nd, but as a lot of you guys may know, Stephen Stearns did take a plea deal, and it just stopped a lot of the stuff from coming out. I know a lot of stuff in Florida, they can't really release stuff due to minors. So I know we weren't going to see too much. This man has been complaining since day 1 that he's been in prison. His parents talked to him, his prison phone calls, emails, how much he's spent in prison has come out. It's disgusting that he thinks that he did nothing wrong. He still denies it. We have no idea where Madeline's mother is, Jennifer Soto. She did not give a victim impact statement when Stephen was sentenced. We have not seen her at all. The last time we seen her was when she was given a short-term immunity to talk about what she had knew about the circumstances between her daughter Madeline Soto and Stephen Stearns. So Again, he took a plea deal, but he won't be getting out. I believe he has life. It basically took the death penalty off the table, and that's what he wanted. So that's what he got, and he did not get any trial or anything like that to get faced down by the judges and the jury. I think he saw that as a win, in my opinion. But whatever. So I'm going to go into the Menendez brothers a little bit here. So Menendez brothers, if you guys didn't know, in 2025, they basically they were given a chance to be set free possibly. Now, I want to reiterate this with that there was quote unquote new evidence, but it wasn't necessarily new. It was evidence that they had found that, in my opinion, now I may get some hate for this, but in my opinion, I feel like this evidence was written and sent to the family members in order to give them evidence, if that makes sense. So basically, there was a letter that was written to a cousin from one of the brothers stating the abuse. And I guess a lot of the family members were like, yeah, they were abused and, this, that, and the other, whatever. So they ended up resentencing, since there is a new law in California, basically, where like they were still considered young adults or not necessarily minors, but young adults when they got sentenced. So basically, it was unconstitutional due to their law, and so they went ahead and they resentenced them. Now, with the resentencing, since they had already had pretty much enough time with the resentencing to go ahead and see about just getting out of prison, they tried to do that, and unfortunately the parole board denied them the parole because of past offenses. Both of the boys both of the brothers, I don't know why I still want to call them boys. I don't know why. Both of the brothers had infractions on their record in jail. So I think one of them had a cell phone, and I think both of them had they were caught with contraband of some sort. So they said no. And I mean, very rightfully so. I mean, these guys, I don't know. I feel like they're where they belong. I feel like when you can kill your parents in such a cold hearted manner and then leave and spend all their money after they're gone, there's something that is chemically not right. And I think the judicial system would regret if they ever release them now. But I mean, they're older men now. I do see the progress they've made in jail. They've got educations, they've got therapy, they've learned new skills, they're being responsible in jail. But that's when you have structure. When people get out of jail, I think that's the number one thing, is they don't necessarily have that structure anymore. So they don't know how to be a part of society. And I think that's the case with the Menendez brothers. I think they need real good structure in order for them not to reoffend in any way. Now, let's talk about a newer case right away, just so now that it's fresh in my mind, I can give it to you guys. So 9-year-old Melody Buzzard was reported missing from her school on October 5th. She was in a hybrid homeschool program, and basically she wasn't returning her work. So her mom was picking up her work, but nothing was being returned. And then after a certain point, work wasn't even being picked up. And I guess there was school functions they always used to go to, and that wasn't taking place either. So the school got worried and reported not seeing Melody Buzzard for a prolonged period of time to CPS. CPS went to the home of Ashley and Melody Buzzard. Ashley is Melody's mother. Ashley would not produce Melody. She would not tell anybody anything. She would not say anything, do anything. Basically, she was just acting weird. After a certain point in time, the FBI did get involved, and they started pressing Ashley for things, and she would not speak. Now, Ashley was taken in for a non-related charge to her missing child, Melody Buzzard. One of her friends basically filed a charge of false imprisonment, and he had claimed he knew what she had did with Melody. Now, I think that that's what basically started everything in locating this child. So the last actual appearance of her on surveillance camera was October 9th, and they do believe she was murdered thereafter. This was on the Colorado border. That's where they believe that she was at. Now, on December 6th, there was a man and a woman out in Utah taking photos, and they discovered that there was a decomposing body out on the side of the road, and that was believed to be Melody. They waited for the DNA to come back, and also they had found some gun casings in a storage of Ashley Buzzard's. And so they were able to match the ballistics and get the DNA confirmation, and they actually arrested Ashley Buzzard. I think it was December 22nd that she was actually taken in. It might have been the 23rd. I'm not too sure. Melody unfortunately succumbed to a gunshot wound to her head. Again, this was out of Santa Barbara County in Lompoc, California. But very tragic end. A lot of people were hoping that this little girl was still alive. I think a lot of people were holding out hope that maybe her mom was just scared that because her dad had died from a motorcycle accident, and the dad's parents and extended family had been wanting to see Melody, and a lot of people believe that she was scared that they were going to take her custody away. But in my opinion, that's not a reason to kill your child. So what was going on? Like, was there mental health issues going on? Which obviously I really do believe there was mental health issues happening with Ashley Buzzard. Like, what prompted this? Because they took a 3,000-mile ride in 3 days, all the way as far as Kansas. So it's like, what was really going on here? What was happening? What was seen? What was being done? What was Melody saying? What was Melody asking? There's so many questions, and we'll probably learn more about it. I'll probably end up doing a deep dive on that one, because a lot like Maddie Soto, this case has kind of taken me on a wild ride into try to figure out like why would her mother act in this manner? Because she's acted very strange. She changed license plates while they were driving. She would it was said that when she'd go to convenience stores, she'd back in so nobody can see her license plate. She wore wigs all the time. She was seen at her house. She was always ordering from Amazon or Walmart, for delivery. She never really went out after all this happened. She didn't have her own car. She rented the car. That's kind of how they figured out where she was at, because she rented the car. Just weird things. She loaded some stuff in a U-Haul, and then there's pictures that came out of her home, and it was in disarray, tons of boxes everywhere. It's unclear if that's what the police had did after they had taken her in, but it seems to me like that's how she lived. It was very minimal, but it also seemed like she was packing too. So I'll keep you guys updated on this. I'm sure we will see some court hearings with Ashley Buzzard, but may that little girl rest in peace. I hope she finds peace, and I hope that she's up there making sure that her mother the justice that she deserves as well. All right, so another one I want to talk about while it's fresh in my mind is Anna Kepner. If you guys have not been following this case, this is the 18-year-old that was found dead on a Carnival cruise ship. She was found in her cabin. It's come out that she was found underneath the bed, and that she died from asphyxiation due to a bar arm hold, basically somebody holding you from the back around your neck and choking you out. That's what her cause of death was. Now, there's a lot of stuff that nobody's been charged with her murder yet, and a lot of people are really worried that charges aren't going to come because the main suspect is her stepbrother that did this, and it's suspected that the stepbrother was very infatuated with Anna Kepner. Her dad had just married this child's mother, and they probably knew each other before then, but the fact that they very rushingly blended this family and then went on a cruise, so it would be a tradition for them to go on cruises around that time, and put all three teenagers in the same room, one girl, two boys, is absolutely insane to me, because I feel like the dad has a lot to do with this. He should have put his foot down. He'd been like, you're not staying with them. There was reports from Anna's ex-boyfriend that when they would fall asleep, like on FaceTime, he had seen an incident where the stepbrother went on top of Anna and was like straddling her, and he had to like yell at him to get off of her and stuff. So very disturbing behavior. And to say like you didn't know that behavior. Now there is some new things that have come out. They are Anna's stepmother and the father of the stepbrother are in a custody battle that was going on prior to when this had happened. So there's a lot of stuff coming out in regards to the fact that they did have a lot of trouble between the family. It wasn't like this happy blended family like a lot of people, especially the grandparents, want to sit here and say. And I think this could have been prevented. I think it could have been prevented if her father would have taken the initiative and said, no, you are staying with your grandparents and the boys are staying in a room, or I'm staying with one boy and your stepmom staying with the other boy and the other kids. Like, there could have been so many other arrangements to take place. Now, a lot of people were concerned that the FBI was involved in this. And the only reason the FBI got involved in this is because this happened on a cruise ship. So with cruise ships, even if they are owned by American companies or American lands or whatever, since they are in international waters when most likely the crimes took place, they have to kind of put it in and kind of see, where this was. Now, Anna Kepner was killed at, I believe it was like her death was like at 11 the morning of, and they didn't find her until later that day. So kind of concerning. And again, that's one I'll probably do a deep dive on later once we get a little more information, maybe when somebody is charged. And I have a feeling that this isn't going to go very well because, again, the person that's being accused of doing this is a minor, and we all know that minors hardly serve any time. Okay, so that also brings me into, I want to kind of go over the cases that I have still kind of fresh in my memory, and that would bring us to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Now, if you guys don't know about this case, Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found in California in the Hollywood portion of the hills, kind of. And she was in the front trunk of a Tesla. So for those of you guys that don't know, because some people have been like telling me like the front trunk of a Tesla is super small, nobody would fit in there. I want you guys to remember that there's different models of Teslas. So this was one of the bigger models. I don't know what they're called, but this was one of the bigger models. So the body was found in there. And also, not that it was, I don't believe, because this hasn't been verified or not, that the body was actually dismembered. I believe that it was decomposing at that time. So it looked like it was dismembered. So she was found, and it was actually towed from that place, and her body was found at a tow yard in Los Angeles. So there has been new updates in this case. Nobody has been arrested or charged or even suspected up until maybe like a couple months ago. This girl was known to have, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, she was only 14 years old. So she was not a woman. There's reports coming out that she was a woman and that she knew what she was doing. She was 14. She was a child, okay? So that's why she is in this child category. So she was seeing or talking to this guy. His name was David. He was a singer. His real name is David Burke. And basically, he was older than her. But at the time they were talking, they were both minors. And a lot of people are using that as an excuse. However, it's not an excuse when you continue to date somebody that is a minor. Because he started talking to Celeste Rivas Hernandez when she was only 11 or 12 years old. So can you imagine that? Like, that's too young, in my opinion, of course. It is evident that Celeste Rivas Hernandez did have a troubling kind of childhood. Her dad was the one that was the main caregiver for her, and it seemed like she ran away a lot. But yeah, it seemed like she was running away. She was reported missing. So she had been missing. However, it's come out that the family did know where she was at. They did know she was talking to David, and they did know that she was possibly at his home. So the fact that they didn't say, oh, we know where she's at, she's not missing, and people were actively still looking for her is kind of crazy to me. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like this family was doing what they could. Can't completely blame them. Of course, that's my opinion. Now, new evidence that have come out is that because they had the home's owner of where she was allegedly staying at basically hired a private investigator to look into this because he wasn't being told anything by the cops or the FBI because the FBI is involved in this now. And so he hired his own private investigator. The private investigator searched the home. They found a lot of things, and those things are starting to come out now that they have basically talked to a grand jury to see about indicting possibly David or accomplices, people like that. Nobody really knows yet because there hasn't been any charges. But they did find a burn pit that was purchased but unopened. And this was part of some of the stuff that was found that they said was very ominous and very eerie. Some say satanic. And if you listen to David's music, it's also that's been kind of a trigger point of people saying, oh my God, like he had planned this or he knew about this during this time. He also was on tour during this time and he was doing some very ominous things on tour. So this case, again, nobody has been charged with Celeste Rivas Hernandez's death. They have not been able to find out like her cause of death as of yet. A lot of people are suspecting drugs, an overdose, something to that nature. But nothing is really clear now, and nothing has really been released due to keeping the integrity of the case. But that is also something I am wanting to do a deep dive on, and I will keep you updated over on my social media platforms on that as well. So let's talk a little bit about, again, documentaries. So one of the big documentaries was Ellen Greenberg's death in apartment 603. Now, Ellen Greenberg, if you guys have never heard this case, this case has basically stumped a lot of freaking people throughout the years. This happened in January of 2011. She was basically she sustained 20 stab wounds, some to the top of her head. She had bruising and all this stuff, and this was never ruled a homicide. This was ruled a suicide. And with so many people talking about it, of course, Netflix did a documentary on it, went through her boyfriend and how this possibly could have taken place and how nobody has been charged because, again, it was a suicide. Now, in this case, there was a lot to do with a relationship between the family of Samuel Goldberg and James Schwartzman and Josh Shapiro, which were all in this case. And basically, this is why it kind of flew under the radar in a lot of people's opinion, was that her boyfriend had the ins with some people. Now, they did try to change the manner of death and they did change it for a brief portion to undetermined before changing it back in October of this year to a suicide, even though multiple people have basically reported that pathologists and people that have looked at her autopsy have determined that there is no way that somebody can stab themselves that many times, especially in the areas that she was found, which were in the back. There was one to her chest, and I think one to like one of her sides, and then on top of her head. People can barely, that's not a way that people usually commit suicide, and that's been said many times. So if you guys have not seen this, I highly encourage you to go watch it over on Netflix. It's called Death in Apartment 603, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg. Highly recommend you guys go watch that because it's very interesting, and it'll change your perspective on so many things, and so much stuff has happened with that. It's kind of crazy to me that people don't talk about it more. Now let's talk a little bit about Casey Anthony now. So Casey Anthony, if you guys don't know who Casey Anthony is, she basically got away with killing her daughter in a lot of people's opinions. She tried to make a comeback in 2025 with a TikTok account, and unfortunately she did not succeed, and she made one video and then she was gone. A lot of people were really against her joining any kind of social media. She's still on Substack. If you guys watched the documentary with her with Hulu, that kind of gave you a perspective. She started working as a private investigator, and that's kind of what she does now. Now, if you guys don't remember, back in 2008, her daughter, Caylee Anthony, went missing. She was missing for a month, and Caylee's mother, Cindy, reported it to the police. Casey initially claimed that the nanny had kidnapped Caylee, but police quickly determined that this was false. After lying to police multiple times, Casey was arrested for her daughter's murder. Caylee's body was found wrapped in a blanket near the Anthony home. This was shortly after the missing persons report, and of course, as you guys know, she was basically only found guilty of lying to the police. That's it. She was acquitted on all other charges, and basically she is a free woman now. She's been photographed with multiple men, and that's part of the reason that people think that she killed her daughter, was because she wanted to be with men. But hey, that's not me to judge. That's just my opinion, of course. And she is on Substack. Again, she is a private investigator, and she talks about helping people convictions. She claims her dad is the one that killed her daughter, Caylee Anthony. But she tried to come back to TikTok, and she tried to say that she's going to talk about her truth, and a lot of people were saying she saw Gypsy Rose Blanchard doing this, so she was gonna go ahead and join the bandwagon and do it. And unfortunately, she didn't last very long. She posted one video, and then I think things were taken down. I had reported the video, and it had been restricted. I think a lot of people were reporting it, so she just decided, I'm done with this. Now let's get a little bit heavy here, guys. Emily Pike was the 14-year-old girl who was allegedly sexually assaulted and was found murdered after running away from a group home. She had run away from that group home many times. Her remains were found dismembered, and her cause of death was ruled ruled homicidal violence. No suspects have ever been identified. This is still unsolved. And her death prompted the creation of Emily's Law and Arizona's turquoise alert system to better assist in finding missing and endangered tribal members, in part of distinguishing them from runaways. So that's something amazing that happened in this case, that they were able to have Emily's Law and have those turquoise alerts. Hopefully in all of the endangered tribal member areas, they can implement this, but this is in Arizona as of right now. Now, a little bit of a backstory. Emily, she basically was a runaway. She had ran away multiple times, and unfortunately she was reported by the group home. Now, in January of 2025, she snuck out for the last time from her group home. She was in the custody of her tribe and ultimately placed in a Mesa group home licensed by the Department of Child Safety. But before that, she was reported being sexually assaulted by a San Carlos on the San Carlos Apache Reservation. In May of 2025, San Carlos Apache Police Department Chief Elliot Sneezy spoke to Arizona lawmakers during a joint lake. Now, part of the reason why was not correct was her 911 call was transferred to the Game and Fish Department. And part of the reason why that call was given to Game and Fish was to locate her was because it was in a rural area and a very desolate area, and Game and Fish are the experts on locating people in those types of areas. Now, she initially ran away January 27th of 25 from the group home. They notified the tribe social services, and they did not call DCS hotline to report her as a runaway. Since then, DCS officials had ordered the group home to use the hotline regardless of the entity that placed the child in the home. So they contacted tribal social services and not regular social services in this case. Now, she had ran away from Sacred Journey, exiting a room's window. The alarm on the window had been disabled, so she was very, very used to doing this. 100 miles away from where Emily was last seen in Mesa, 2 memorials have grown off US 60 near milepost 277, as that's where her body was located. Now again, Emily Pike's murder does go unsolved, so if anybody has any information in regards to this, please let the authorities out in Arizona know. Again, she was found off Highway 60 in the state of Arizona, and it's still being investigated as a homicide. So I think that Indigenous people need more attention than some of the other people, and I don't want to put that like in a sense where we should only pay attention to them, but I think that a lot of other people that go missing get this attention, and unfortunately with the Indigenous group of people, they should get the same amount of attention, if not more, because of their rights to the lands that they have and the sacredness of how things are done with Indigenous people as well. Now let's talk a little bit about Diddy, guys. So Diddy basically took over this whole year. This whole year, he took it over. And I was looking at his stuff, and it's just crazy. So there's so many lawsuits, there's so much. We're not going to spend too much time on this because I didn't spend too much time on Diddy when I was doing information. So basically, for those of you guys that do not know, Diddy is incarcerated and he faced a trial this year. He went through a lot of things. There's a lot of things. There's the documentary over on Netflix. Like I said, if you want to watch it, it's The Reckoning, Sean Combs. 50 Cent helped produce it. And if you guys know 50 Cent, you guys will know what he has said about Sean Combs, stuff like that. So we're going to get into it here as far as his legal issues that have been happening. And a lot of people don't know that he's had a lot of legal issues throughout the years, but this more recent legal issue has brought out a lot of lawsuits. And let me tell you, there is so much going on with this man, and has been. I think people just ignored it because he was Diddy. So let's go over why he was on trial this time. Combs was arrested and indicted in the Southern District of New York on September 16th of 24 on charges of racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and transportation for purpose of prostitution. He is held in a federal custody at the Federal Correction Institute in Fort Dix. During a court appearance on October 10, 2024, Judge Aureen Suburban, I'm sorry, I cannot say that judge's name. The judge set Combs' trial date as May 5th, 2025. On November 27, 2024, a judge denied bail for a third time. On April 18, 2025, a request by Combs' lawyer to postpone the trial for 2 months was also denied. So if you guys don't remember, they were like filing all these motions and everything was getting denied. It was crazy. The trial began on May 5th of 2025 with jury selection, while opening statements and witness testimony began on May 12th. The prosecution and defense concluded their cases on June 24th, 2025. Closing arguments began on June 26th. On July 2nd, 2025, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury found Combs guilty on 2 counts of transportation for the purpose of prostitution involving Ventura, another former girlfriend, and male sex workers, but not guilty for racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. Later that day, Combs was denied bail and ordered to remain in custody pending sentencing, which was scheduled on October 3rd. And in August 2025, Combs' legal team said that they had reached out to President Donald Trump regarding possible presidential pardon, which Trump later denied. On October 3rd, 2025, Combs was sentenced to 4 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release, With the 12 months already spent on holding, Combs is expected to be released in May of 2028. And if those of you guys did not hear about it, he also got a couple more months added for making alcohol in prison. Yes. That's what happened with Diddy this year, and he is in jail. And I want you guys to know that TMZ is fully behind this man, because they've been putting up some AI pictures, and I think he is just loving it out in prison. He's loving to see it. Now let's get to another Netflix documentary that came out earlier this year that some of you guys may have forgot. It was the Gabby Petito case, and I think a lot of people, since this happened in January, I think a lot of people kind of forgot about the documentary. But there's a lot of things that came from it that I think even the family did not realize that came from it. There was a lot of new attention that was given to the case, and I think it put it in front of a lot of people. For those of you guys that do not know, Gabby Petito was an inspiring American vlogger and travel blogger who was killed by her fiance Brian Laundrie in 2021. The 22-year-old was documenting cross-country van life trip with Laundrie on a YouTube channel and blog when she went missing in August of 2021. Witnesses reported a domestic violence incident between the couple to the police in Moab, Utah before her death, and there was just some crazy stuff. So if you guys have not seen that Gabby Petito documentary, Where's Gabby, follows the timeline of the events of the American murder of Gabby Petito. Definitely go and rewatch it, guys. I think this is a case that needs to still be in the headlines, but not for the social media reasons that it was, because there was a lot of speculation that Brian Laundrie is still alive and that his parents hid it from everyone. And I don't think that that's like the correct narrative to be playing with. You know what I mean? I think that it's just, to me, I feel like you should leave it at that. I'm, in a way, you know, he knew his wrongs that he did, and he knew the person he was. Yes, it was a cowardly way out, but let's just leave it at that, guys, okay? Now let's talk about the Texas track meet stabbing. I know a lot of you guys might not remember this. I actually covered it on one of my updates episodes. And this was a track meet. It was Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. They were 17-year-old. They were at a track meet, and basically things got out of hand. So on April 2nd of 2025, Austin Metcalf, a 17-year-old student at Memorial High School, was fatally stabbed by Carmelo Anthony of Sentinel High School, students at the same age, while attending a school track meet in Frisco, Texas. He died of his injuries at the scene. Anthony surrendered himself to authorities soon after the stabbing and has been charged with first-degree murder. Anthony pled not guilty, alleging self-defense. The trial is scheduled for June 1st of 2026. So basically, there was a lot of stuff going on social media about this whole thing. They were talking about how it was racially motivated. It was not racially motivated. This Carmelo Anthony had actually got a bunch of support because they felt like it was very racially motivated, but it was not. Now, the stabbing did occur at Memorial High School at approximately 10 a.m. on April 2nd, 2025. The altercation started when the track and field championship event was delayed due to thunderstorms and heavy downpours. Hunter Metcalf, Austin's twin brother, told Anthony to move out from the Memorial team's tent. Austin then confronted Anthony. During the argument that ensued, Anthony allegedly said, "Touch me and see what happens," quote unquote, while reaching his hand into his backpack. Metcalf then pushed Anthony on the bleachers they were on. In response, he allegedly said, "Punch me and see what happens," to which Metcalf punched him. In response, Anthony pulled out a black knife from the backpack and stabbed Metcalf once in the chest after running away. Another witness in the Frisco police arrest report stated Austin and Anthony went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed Anthony to get him out of the tent. So it did seem like there was a lot of ego, a lot of testosterone going on in what. So when he was taken in on April 14th, 2025, the judge in this case lowered Anthony's bond from 1 million to 250,000, citing his clean criminal record and his academic and athletic achievements. Anthony was released on bond. This was also due to a lot of internet backlash that this was racially motivated. I want to add that because that's just my opinion. And his release conditions: he must be supervised by an adult at all times and must contact the judge's bailiff every Friday morning. He was prohibited from using social media or contacting Metcalf's family. Now, on June 24th of 25, the grand jury indicted Anthony on charges of first-degree murder, and the trial again is set for June 1st of 2026. Metcalf's mother and father have both had their homes swatted, with one which incident resulted in a SWAT team showing up to Metcalf's father's home with their weapons drawn. Additionally, both Metcalf and Anthony's father have been forced to leave their jobs after facing harassment and doxing. The judge who lowered the bond to 250,000 has also been doxxed and received multiple threats from unknown people. The FBI and the local sheriff's office are investigating also these incidents. So a lot of stuff has come from this one incident. Again, there was a crowdfund for Anthony that raised over $515,000 by May 1st. This was also like for his family as well. So they've kind of rallied around the family and stuff like that, and there's been a lot of misinformation, but this case is a interesting one, and there's been a lot of media attention, there's been a lot of hearsay, and I think we will hear a lot when this trial. Now let's talk a little bit about the 764 network. Now this I'm gonna leave all the episodes that I did on all of these that I talk about linked down in the show notes, but you can find them on Blurred Lines podcast feed wherever you listen to the podcast. The 764 network, I did a full episode, but I have been seeing more of an uptick of family members, friends, and people that are more aware of this, and I think that I'm going to continue to talk about this, but there's a lot of kids that are still losing their lives due to this network. So those of you guys that don't know, this network basically desensitizes your children and blackmails them. Gets them to send pictures of themselves or something that's embarrassing, them doing something that's illegal, doing something hurting animals, just desensitizing them, making other kids watch this, and then turning around and blackmailing them. And a lot of kids have taken their own lives when it comes to the 764 network. So I hope people are really aware. There's a lot of videos going on social media. I will continue to talk about this, and I will continue to share stories with you guys about children that are being victimized by this horrible group. And even though the person that was the head of this group or the creator of all this whole thing is in prison, there is still kids that follow him. So when you have like a cult like following, you have all these people that were in it that are still exposed to it. So I hope people are aware of it, and I hope people are starting to see the dangers of the internet for their children. So be sure you're watching your children and be sure that you are aware of it. All right, so we're going to get into something a little heavier. Now, as you guys may notice right now, I am leaving Gypsy Rose Blanchard for last because there's a lot I want to say, and there's a lot that's gone on over the last year with me and Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So I'm leaving that for last, and I do apologize for this being a little bit longer, but I like to bring you guys a little bit of updates. Even if I'm not doing it every single week, I am going to try to do it at least every month or every so often, just so you guys have these updates. Now, we're going to get into Jacqueline Torres Garcia. Now, this was the 12-year-old that basically her remains were found, and her mother also did tote her around when she was already dead. So Jacqueline, also known as Mimi Torres Garcia, it was alleged that she was starved to death and severely abused before she was killed. She was often restrained, and her body was found in a plastic bag covered with a comforter and sheets in a laundry basket inside a plastic basket that was left in an abandoned property in October of 20. So unfortunately, that's how this little girl was found. Now, it is reported that just 2 weeks before she had died, she was restrained, zip tied. It's also said, just heavy trigger warning, guys, that they would put her zip tied to a chair and on top of pee pads, and her mom would leave her like that for sometimes days. Now, the little girl only weighed 26 to 27 pounds when she died, and that's according to an affidavit. She was never reported missing, and on October 8, New Britain police officers were called to an abandoned building in response to a report of a suspicious behavior, and it was later found out that her mother's boyfriend was the one that actually left her there. That was the suspicious behavior that was being reported at that home. Now, investigators determined that the little girl had likely died in the fall of 2024 when her family lived in Farmington. Public Safety Director Paul Menson said her family allegedly took her remains with them when they moved from Farmington in March of 25. When authorities opened the 40-gallon bin, they found the child's body inside a plastic bag, wrapped in a comforter and sheets in a laundry basket, according to the affidavit. On October 12th, Mimi's mother, Carla Garcia, who was 29, was arrested and charged with a number of counts, including a murder with suspicious circumstances, conspiracy to commit murder with suspicious circumstances, improper disposal of a dead body, and intentional cruelty to a child under the age of 19. Garcia pleaded not guilty and is being held on a $5 million bond. That same day, the child's aunt, Jacqueline Garcia, 28, was arrested and charged with intentional cruelty to a child under the age of 19, risk of injury to a child, and first-degree unlawful restraint. She pleaded not guilty and is being held on a $1 million bond. Garcia's ex-boyfriend, Jonathan Jojo Nanita, who was 30, was taken into custody on October 13th on a felony arrest warrant. He is accused of killing the child along with Garcia, police said during the press conference that they held. He was later charged with tampering with evidence and disposal of a body. He pleaded not guilty. Nanita is being held on a $5 million bond for the initial charges and $750,000 for the new charges, according to his online jail records. Authorities allege that Jonathan Nanata, brought the container holding the girl's remains to the property on Clark Street on Wednesday, October 8th. Police said at their press conference as well. According to an affidavit, Nanata's current girlfriend told police that at the end of September, he drove to a cemetery, picked up a plastic bin, and put it in the trunk of his Acura, then drove to New Britain and left it there. She said the bin smelled bad and told people she thought there was a body inside as well. The three appeared in court. The three were scheduled for court dates on December 19th, 12th, and 16th. And basically, they are still being held. And I believe that there is a trial scheduled for them. There is also a charge that I guess the mother was getting SNAP benefits for Jacqueline. There was a CPS case that was already open prior to Jacqueline's death. And she actually used another child for that video conference for that as well. So I don't see any kind of trial date start, but I will keep you updated because this is another case that is super duper sad. All right, so let's get into Gypsy Rose Blanchard a little bit. How about it? So for those of you guys that don't know, you could always find my YouTube down in the show notes below. So those of you guys, I'm just going to do a brief recap of my history with Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Now, I've been following this case since 2016, but I have been covering this case for 2 years since Gypsy Rose Blanchard got paroled out of prison. I've watched all the shows, I've seen all the documents, I've talked to a lot of people, including sources close to not only Gypsy, but also to Ken, also to Christy, also to her father, Rod Blanchard. These are sources that have come to me. I have never seeked out any kind of information in regards to Gypsy Rose Blanchard other than when her boyfriend, Ken Erker, came after me. I seeked out some information from that. I didn't ever post any of it, but I do know a lot of information. So that's a little backstory. Now, Gypsy has contacted me. She contacted me one time to correct me on one of my videos that I made very early on. And then she contacted me to try to get me to dox Ken's ex-girlfriend, who I later found out is not an ex-girlfriend, was actually a roommate. And I found that out through different sources that Ken was in other type of relationships, and I won't get into that, but he actually came after me for that, commenting on videos that weren't even pertaining to him, because if you guys follow me on social media, I never talk about just one subject. I'm a lot like here. I talk about a lot of different subjects. So that was the whole thing with that. I've been in the community. I've seen a lot of people come. I've seen a lot of people go. The whole Ivory Rose Grows Wild, for those of you guys that know, over on TikTok. I talk to Ivory Rose Grows Wild a lot, and now she's friends with Gypsy. So there's a lot of things that need to be studied psychologically in that group, but we're going to talk about the important things. Now, those of you guys that don't know, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, she killed her mom in 2000 and I think it was 15, and basically conned an autistic man to do so. She ended up getting a plea deal for 10 years, and her co-defendant got a trial that basically got his ass handed to him, and he is now serving life in jail. And Nick Godejohn has basically used all of his chips, and we're going to do a deep dive into all this, so don't you guys worry. That's kind of why I'm going into this a little bit, is because we're going to get a whole deep dive. I'm going to do a full-on deep dive on Gypsy Rose Blanchard. It'll be multiple episodes, so that is how I am closing out my Gypsy Rose Blanchard era. I don't know when it'll come. I'm going to do a couple more episodes, probably February, because I know February is one of Gypsy's favorite months. Maybe June, maybe July, maybe we'll honor Dee Dee. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just planning it. But if you guys don't know, over this past year, there's been a lot of stuff released from her case because Nick has no other options to win any appeals, get a new trial. Habeas corpus has been denied. All of his stuff has been denied. So all the stuff that is in this case of the murder of Claudine Blanchard is now being released in Freedom of Information Acts. So basically, a Freedom of Information Act is when you file for cases that are now closed or have exhausted any kind of parole and things like that. And also, for those of you guys that don't know, Gypsy got let out 2 years early. She only served 8 years. She got out on parole. And solely the only reason she was able to obtain parole is because she did the bare minimum in jail. And she was able to secure Ryan Anderson, her ex-husband, to look like she was going to be stable once she got out, but then ended up leaving him, wasn't stable, cheated on him, did all this stuff, right? Well, FOIA requests have been put in. Now, the first set of FOIA requests that were put in, Into the Weeds podcast has released all these. You can find them over on YouTube. They're part of Military Broadcast Radio. They're amazing women. Go check them out. I'll leave them linked down below. But the first set of FOIA requests that were put in were given to them by somebody else that had put them in, and they didn't want to report on it anymore. And that first set was emails. Emails that got put out between her, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, her family, people that she was talking to about her documentary, also a lot of men. So a lot of people told me during this time that, oh, well, that's what people in prison do, is they talk to men or they talk to women, vice versa, to get their stuff paid for. And Gypsy was definitely doing that. She was finding people, she was talking to people, she was creating lives with people. Same stuff she was doing with Nick, Dan, and all, who knows how many people she talked to on that Christian dating site. She was doing that with a lot of people. She got a lot of money in jail from a lot of people, including her father, that would religiously send her stuff. So it wasn't like she absolutely needed to. She was well taken care of regardless of if she had to. It was because she wanted to, in my opinion, of course. Now, as of more recently, we also, with the emails, there was correspondence of like described videos of what was sent to Nick and stuff like that, transcribed. But now we actually get to see the videos. So the videos are available over on Into the Weeds podcast. Again, I'll leave them linked down in the show notes below. You can go check them out. There's videos from Nick, there's videos from Gypsy to Nick, there's thousands of videos that they have to go through. So we're not even at the tip of the iceberg, but we've already found out that Gypsy knew she can walk, she knew her age, and she was doing this out in the open where her mom can find her. She was doing this, she was putting on these shows, putting on costumes, wearing lingerie, dancing with the bathroom door open. She had no fear of what was going to be found out. So I hope a lot of people that have watched The Act on Hulu can finally see the light that that was in fact a fictional show. I hope people can disconnect from that, because that's a huge narrative that was given by Gypsy, and along with letting out, now we know she let out documentaries. It was right before Nick's trial, and that most likely got a lot of bias in the community and with people and with all the things. So that's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna close out my Gypsy Rose Blanchard content with a final, I'm gonna do probably like a YouTube and a podcast type tandem thing that you guys can do. I have a lot of plans for this, and I have a lot of stuff. So I'm going to look forward to that, guys. I hope you guys look into the Gypsy Rose Blanchard stuff while you wait on that. We're going to start from the beginning with that. We'll start from when she was younger, and we'll come all the way down to current day, which current day, she, as of my recording of this, she has stepped away from social media again. And this is like the 7th or 8th time she's done that. So yeah, and we're still displaying patterns. She's talking to men in her comments. Men are sending her stuff. So it's still the same patterns that have been coming. And for people that still see this in the manner that Dee Dee is still at fault, once you kind of see the perspective of the relationship with Dee Dee, because there's videos of Gypsy and Dee Dee in this FOIA request as well, you'll see it a little bit differently, and I hope that you guys see it. And this isn't me trying to change your mind. This is me giving you all the facts. So if after I give you all the facts and all of the everything that I have to say, if you guys still think that you need to support Gypsy Rose Blanchard and she is a victim, all power to you. It does not bother me. It does not. I'm not like her best friend Bree over on the internet trying to change people's minds. I just want you guys to see all the evidence as facts. And I'm very unbiased in this, as far as I have given Gypsy grace until she jumped in my DMs and started trying to dox people, or wanting me to dox people. That's another pattern of behavior, but that's neither here nor there. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. I'm so excited for all the things I have coming in 2026. I want to thank each and every one of you guys that have listened to any one of my episodes. Even if this is the first one, go back. I have a lot of episodes. You guys can go back if you're like, oh, I forgot about that case. Go back. Listen to updates, or listen to the deep dives. I'll leave all the deep dives I mentioned down in the show notes below. Thank you. I just want to thank each and every one of you, because this is one of my passions that, even though I don't get too much recognition for, I know a lot of people listen over on YouTube, but I'm monetized on other sites, and I'm able to do this for partial of my living. This podcast is really my baby, and I really took priority on it, and I hope you guys are seeing it. I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to make it more worth watching, but unfortunately, it's a little bit harder for me, especially going into the new year. I'm going to be working full time. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I do all this stuff, so I hope that you guys see that, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope I'm able to do it more in 2026. And of course, as always, be sure you guys are following me on my social media platforms, on my TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Ash2Trippy, also my YouTube, where you can also listen to this podcast, Blurred Lines, Crime, Conspiracy, and the Truth Behind the Gossip. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll talk about it next time. Stay positive, stay awesome, and happy holidays. Bye, guys.